a series of important journey. Start with the first step and then next step and next step and next step. Look at your life. Your life is a journey. You was born at one point and you will die at one point. That's a if you see everybody's life story, there is a lot of films about famous people's journey. They started from somewhere and end up somewhere. So life is a journey. You see that in the Bible, there is a lot of journey. I research and look for journeys in the Bible. Choose the Paul's journey. Paul had 4 distinguished journeys. And he wanted to have more journey, but Holy Spirit prevented him to that journey. I can compare myself with the Paul. Why not? Why not? I can compare myself with the journey. When we want to start with Paul's journey, if you are familiar with the Bible, you know that Paul wasn't Paul at all. At first, Paul wasn't Paul, was Saul, and his life changed. He wanted to go to Damascus, and his life changed. And the name changed as well. The name changed from Saul to Paul. His life forever. His life changed. If we continue the journey of his life, you and I want to talk about that. Paul's 4 missionary journey began with his first. I guess the first missionary journey started from and kill Christians. It was a missionary journey, the Jews. It was against the Christian. Actually, it was the first journey. Got the letter from synagogue. یه معرفی نامه گرفت. معرفی نامه فرستیار بکشه. But when you look up, around 68, so let's talk about those journey. I don't want to. Personal opinion is first journey of forever. He was making mistakes on his trip on Damascus. He would say, "Me, I want to kill heretics, people." So me, I don't make any mistakes. Paul, on the first journey to Damascus, if you meet Paul and ask him, he would say, "Me, I don't make any mistakes. Just Christians are heretics, and I want to kill them to save God." But for Christians, he changed his mind. His final voyage, final journey was to Rome. Although it wasn't era of technology, but at that time, there was no Instagram. So he couldn't do Instagramming at that time. Unfortunately, he couldn't do Instagramming when he was journey to Rome. The first journey, as I told you, it was started in 45 AD. Act, you can read it at Act 15, Northern Asia Minor, Anatolia. Again, it's close to Iran. It's very close to Iran, is Turkey. Those who have money in Iran, unfortunately, the prices goes high. Prices is going up. The prices are level up. The boundary of poverty becomes poor in Iran. اضافه میشه. And on arrival in Cyprus, Saul, from this point onward, referred to by his Greek name, Paul. Settling there because he was staying there for a while. He was with Barnabas, and they preached at the Jewish synagogue in Salamis. I want to compare myself. I want to compare myself to Paul. I can see the church that it closed after that. That church closed. That Iranian church closed. Started there, preaching the good news. So I started by preaching what is the good news actually. When we talk about, what are we talking about when we talk breaking the chain? So don't believe in chain. That's the last effort of forces of darkness to bind us on chain. That's the last effort of, no, the forces of darkness prevent us to do anything. That's the last effort of forces of darkness. Good news is breaking the chain. Paul had a summer camp. They have even when Nowruz, that عید در نوروز میان یک ساختمونی رو اجاره میکنن، یک سری میزهای رو میذارن. They have that. They exhibit the things that they have. They sell what they have. You know. They set up a tent and they stay. When the churches set up a tent and put it, promote themselves. The conferences, they serve themselves. When they hire somebody to serve them, they serve themselves. That's the nature of business. And in some churches, business is in their blood. Business in their blood. بالا مسکونی، پایینی تجاریه. تجارت توی خونشونه. اصلا با تجارت زندگیشون میگذره. بالا زندگی میکنه، پایینم تجارت میکنه. مسکونی تجاری هم ساخته بود. Paul stationed there and they preached the good news. The Jews are jealous and abusive to Paul. When Paul started to preach the good news, the Jews were furious. That's why when I told one of the false teachers that I want to study تیولوژی ناراحت شد. یک کشیشی نامحترمی به یک معلم دروغینی من گفتم خب ملایت بخونن میکنن، حسادت میکنن و نمیتونن یک نفر رو abuse the Pope. So he begins to take the good news about Jesus to the Gentiles. بنابراین he get out of the synagogue because they rejected Paul. Jews in the synagogue rejected Paul. At that time, there was no churches. Even disciples at first rejected Paul until he proved that he got his mission from God. So I have to prove it. I have to prove it that I am from God. Now, when you again, when they rejected Paul, he moved. That's why I moved out of Iranian church. They rejected me in Iranian church. So I had to move to Ottawa. And there was a turning to me. So I had to leave those churches. I was kind. I was a gentleman. Whatever they did, I didn't say anything. I was a gentleman. They mocked me and insulted me, but I didn't say anything. I just came out of Toronto on the home. New chapter and first day of the rest of my life. When I moved to Ottawa, that was لوی پا رو گرفتن و میخواستن بکشنش. That was a wealthy town, prosperous or agricultural area. So I moved on Ottawa. That's the capital of Canada. That's the heart of Canada. Ottawa is the heart of Canada. That's the capital, the central point of Canada. I moved to Ottawa. And I focused on, and I got my PhD with my name on it. Paul and Barnabas hear about the Lycaonia. بالاخره به گوش من میرسه. نقشه هایی که برای من کشیدید بالاخره به گوش من میرسه. He escaped from that city and they went to another city. Stoned him because of blasphemy. They told him, you are preaching heresy. Preaching heresy. That's why I went to Ottawa, another city, and the next day when I went to the church in Ottawa, why I say goodbye to Connect Group. That's why I don't care on it. That's why I say goodbye to old lady. Okay, they tell their home church everything that God has done to strengthen the faith. Enter the church in Ottawa for you. And I told them that I feel God with all God presence, with all my flesh and blood. And also که قاطی نشید. وقتی که قاطی بشید شیطان گیج بکنه. و I heard say distinguish between God voice and Satan voice. I can recognize God voice. I can recognize Satan voice. And I went to the doctor for that. I went to the doctor and I told doctor, I'm here the rest of your life. But I caught the post. I believe in pills. I still take some pills for other reason, not for hearing the voices, because those voices belong to Satan. And I cannot manipulate. No more manipulation. Satan, stop. And when they ask me, tell us about what God has done for your life, when I remember what God has done for me, I thank God. Because if God wasn't with me, I wouldn't be here now. God wasn't with me, always was with me, protected me. You doing that against the effort of Satan. I talk about second trip today, and I will continue later in 50 AD. Paul suggested that he and Barnabas and Pisidia that they visited on their previous journey to go back and revisit the churches that he established. It didn't need any invitation. Some people today, they waiting for invitation. He's to that churches that he himself established. That was the second trip. They have an argument. They have an argument about whether to take John Mark with them again about the food. They had disagreement about the food. And they separated from there. That was the first separation happened. And this separation شد از هم جدا شدن. So Barnabas goes to Jews. Right? Paul is joined by Silas from the Jerusalem. So Paul joined from Jerusalem, come and join Paul, and they travel together. They travel through Syria and Cilicia, encouraging the new believers there. Paul and Silas pass through Derbe and go to Lystra, where Paul had been stoned by the Jews and left for dead on his first visit. Left for dead. I guess I type it wrong here. It doesn't make sense, left for dead. Okay, so that was the second journey that Paul separated from Barnabas, and Mark joined forces with someone from Jerusalem, and they continue their journey. So the plan A was come with the Barnabas and Mark and join force with someone from Jerusalem and continue our journey. If I want to compare my with Paul, that I started the journey, my colleagues, teachers of the church in Toronto, we separated. I went to Ottawa, they stayed a station in Toronto, but I separated from them and came to Ottawa. And even I passed through the place, the church that they wanted to kill me. I passed through them به گوشم شنیدم، به گوشم رسید چه نقشه هایی برای من کشیدن وقتی داشتم رد می‌شدم از اون جایی که نقشه قتل منو کشیدن. به گوشم میرسه. At which دفعه اول, the first time Paul disappointed and offended Jews. Paul offended Jews and disappointed them. He didn't want to disappoint them for the second time. And I didn't want to upset the local church in Toronto. If I stayed there much, I strongly believe that nobody needs to get baptized twice. Nobody needs to get baptized twice. Some of the people in the church, they wanted to get baptized twice. One is enough. One baptized is enough. That's why I get separated from them, because a false teaching. Paul, Silas, and Timothy traveled through the Roman provinces of Galatia. That's my personal opinion. Why I couldn't, and that church closed. Why? I think that's my personal opinion. I'm not like those false teachers that God closed that church because I'm supposed to be closed. So I shouldn't preach in that church. That's why sometimes Holy Spirit prevented me from going somewhere. Like I borrow a book, I'm a published author. I want to get my books back 5 books down instead of 1. And Holy Spirit prevented me from going there. Sometimes God working that way. If I want to compare myself, Holy Spirit prevented me to preach good news to Vienna Church. And I try to apologize to them. Even when I get out of that church, I try to apologize to them, asking for forgiveness. Because I didn't do anything wrong. Just I wanted to be more gentle, more humble, to ask forgiveness. But God, Holy Spirit, prevented me to ask for forgiveness. Okay, so that was the second trip. And Paul landed in Ottawa in 2019 for the first time. I can come. More few Jews and no synagogue in the city on the Sabbath day and began to speak to the woman. Eve closed the Rideau Canal. I closed to river. Philippi. They had a group. Women in Connect group, certainly those women didn't gossip about their husband. Or in churches, Connect group, they gossip about their husband. Unfortunately. I can say unfortunately. I don't care how much money do you have. It's not good at all. Lydia had received inheritance from her father. She and her family became believers and she had church of her own. Paul was furious, was a slave girl who makes her owners rich because every day she was telling others about their future. In her and his companion. Actually, that girl was obsessed with Paul. To Paul, that girl was obsessed with Paul. And Paul, in the spirit, of business to take care of that girl, and that girl was their investment. They invest on that girl. The owner invested on that girl, and when they lost their profit, they were furious. Their profit disappeared. The investment didn't come back. Paul and Silas or dragged before the Roman magistrates to explain their action. But their voices are drowned by the chanting of the crowd. That's why I went to a group of young people, and that young people was shouting, and even come out. I wanted to explain, but they didn't allow me to explain. Young people encouraged to shout higher. My voice doesn't come out. They didn't allow me to explain. That was the second trip of Paul. So next week, I'm going to continue talking about Paul's